All right, you can all see me, okay? All right, great. Welcome. Sorry for a little bit of delay of getting everything started. I'm gonna try and.
You should be able to minimize that.
Yeah, I'll come back afterwards, and please put things in the chat as I go along. So I'm really happy to be here and to meet all of you virtually and some folks in person. Because I am director of the Institute for the Study of Culture and Society. So my name is Lee Sheffer. I came up as a faculty member starting at, this was my first position out of grad school. So I was in your shoes 16 years ago this fall, I think. So I kind of know what this overwhelming first weeks are like. My hope here is that I will plant enough seeds that when you are ready for some of this information, you'll know that it's available to you and you'll know how to reach me, okay? So we'll make sure to send along the actual copies of the slides, and I have a one-page handout that's just an overview of some of the programs I'll be talking about today that I'll send to you so that when you do 6 months from now or a year from now say, oh, yeah, what was that thing? You will know where to go, and you can have a folder for all of the stuff you've learned about in these first few weeks. So the Institute for the Study of Culture and Society, let me move that along. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's me. Let me go back a sec. Began really more as a humanities research institute. This is my 7th year as director. There have been several directors before me, but in its current incarnation, we really are functioning as a public humanities center, which means our job is really to help faculty and the university at large to translate the value of the research that's happening on campus and to make those connections off campus. And I'll talk about some of the different ways we do that. But what that means is ICS is for all of you. There isn't any discipline or college that this is really designed for at the exclusion of others. So all of the programs I'm talking about, we have had or are eager to have faculty participation from every college of the university, every discipline, all of that. So if sometimes the bias towards the humanities creeps in, that's because of sort of this public humanities focus and its origins as more of a humanities research institute. But we are always trying to expand that and to involve as many faculty from as many different parts of the university as possible. So if there's any questions you have about, would this work for me? What I want you to do is reach out to me and we'll talk about it and figure out how it might make sense to partner together. I can't think of anything that the answer would just be an immediate no. It might be, how would that work? How could we make it work so that it sort of fits within the umbrella of ICS and our mission to kind of make research more publicly available? And we would go from there. So I do want to begin with a land acknowledgement statement. This is because the university's been working hard to really think about our practices and build an equity. And this is something that's really important to ICS as well. So as you may have already been told multiple times, Bowling Green State University and its campuses are situated in the homelands of numerous indigenous and native tribal nations. Our campus footprint holds many contemporary and historical ties to the Wyandot, Kickapoo, Miami, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and other indigenous tribal nations present and past who were forcibly removed to and from the area. And we want to take that a step further. And so our commitment within ICS is to really ask ourselves and to ask those who partner with us to acknowledge, address, and confront systemic inequality wherever it shows up in your communities. And so some examples of that might include combating the absence of representation of BIPOC, queer, and disabled communities, maybe negative or other forms of stereotyping, and also just making sure we're thinking about inequities in access and outcomes related to education, housing, health, law, commerce, all of that. So I'll direct you there if you want to know more about the university's land acknowledgement statement. Okay, then I'm going to give you one of these. that. That's some of the stuff that we talked about. So we also within ICS are working really hard to increase our accessibility practices. This has been a really concerted effort over the last couple of years. And so I want to state this here too, that we have our own access statement. ICS is committed to curating fully accessible experiences for all users. We believe that equitable access to information is a basic human right, and we strive to ensure that our programming and online presence are accessible for all users, including those with visual, auditory, physical, speech, cognitive, language, learning, and neurological disabilities. And so this is a thing too that I want to begin with this to sort of give you a sense of who ICS is, and also because then the programs that follow, there are elements of all of those programs that connect back to the land acknowledgement statement, to accessibility practices that I can, talk about in more detail later on if folks want to know. Okay, so ICS, we basically use the shortened acronym. The full name is a mouthful, and again, that's a legacy of its earlier founding as a kind of research institute for interdisciplinary work. It's been around at BGSU since 1996. So it has a long history here, even as its sort of focus and programming has evolved over those decades. And our current aim is to encourage innovation in the arts, humanities, and social sciences. Although again, asterisk, we are not, that doesn't mean that the hard sciences and other areas are excluded from it. This is just sort of our primary area of focus. And to communicate the value and significance of that work to the wider public. Our mission, and we just went through about a year ago, very significant strategic planning for the Institute. So all of this is really kind of very much our current direction. Our mission is to empower people and communities to leverage the strengths of the humanities to serve the public good. And as I'm sure you've heard many times already, and you will continue to hear, BGSU's mission to be a public university for the public good is one that really, even before that was the message of the university, really aligns with ICS's values and priorities. And to sort of following from that, I wanted to share with you some of the things that came out of that strategic planning. And these are our principles. So we met with faculty, staff, students, grad students, people who've been active with ICS and people who weren't but were interested, to get a feel for what ICS is already doing, what we could be doing to fill needs in the university and the larger community. And what came out of this is really who ICS is. Our values that we try to put into practice in our programming. And again, as I'll talk in more detail about, I want to state these because this really gives a sense for who we are and whether we're a good fit for your own ideas. We want to model inclusion. So what we do and how we do it matters. We want to collaborate intentionally. We believe in the power of putting people together, communities together, and great things happening through that interplay. We want to empower others, right? Whether that's to use scholarship, research, creative work to help the community, or just to sort of take knowledge and go forth with it. We want people to come with an open mind. So we value curiosity. We value inquisitiveness. This is not about doctrinaire thinking. We really always try and figure out what's next. What could we do? What could we do more of or better? How could we make this work? And we want to question the status quo. We don't want to just reproduce what we've done before. We really want to push ourselves and the people who partner with us to think creatively about what research looks like, what teaching might look like, and how all of those things can be continually evolving to be more inclusive, to be more impactful, things like that. So you may be asking yourself, what exactly does ICS do? Here's a list of some of the things. And this is in that packet. And for those of you who are joining remotely, we'll send this along separately. There's kind of an overview of these programs. We have a podcast called BG Ideas. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you're listening. I encourage you to look it up right now and subscribe. We have a new season that will be starting when school starts. It sort of follows the beginning of the semester. I can talk more about that momentarily. We have a faculty fellowship program, which should be of great interest to all of you. This is Once you've completed an EPR, you've had 3 years, you are eligible to apply, and you would get a semester off from teaching and service responsibilities to do creative or research work under the aegis of ICS. And part of that work would be community engaged, like sharing that research with the public, helping a community organization use your research or creative work. And I can talk about some examples there, but that's something I want you to know. There is a fellowship program within the university that all faculty, all full-time faculty are eligible for. There are some stipulations, and I can go over those afterwards if folks have questions, but know that ICS is a place that can offer a fellowship semester. We also have collaborative clusters. And so these are groups of faculty, sometimes faculty and grad students, faculty, staff, and admin. They're sort of organically formed around topics of interest that cross those departmental lines. So currently we have faculty clusters on Latin American and Latino issues studies. They help put on the Latino Issues Conference every year that is for students. So a lot of their work is very student focused and community engaged. We have a cluster that has faculty members from the College of Musical Arts, the university libraries, Health and Human Services that is devoted to the cultures of sound, that deals with disability, music, culture, sort of thinking about sound in all of the different ways it affects culture and life. And there are others. So if you have an idea for a cluster, if you have a topic that you're like, I'd like to find like-minded people who care about this thing, we can help facilitate those gatherings. And each of those clusters sort of takes on a character of their own, but we can help introduce you to other folks on campus who might share those interests. And again, we can get into more detail, but the projects, the focus can be pedagogical, it can be research, right? It can be a kind of writing group around a shared set of interests. It can be about applying for grants or working with community organizations. We have another cluster that's the poverty cluster that's doing a lot with health inequalities in the Toledo metro region. And so connecting, many of those folks are like in political science and cultural geography, working with community partners. So there are a lot of different possibilities there. We also have a visiting speaker series. So periodically we'll be bringing in speakers who we think sort of have something important to say that affects kind of many different disciplines. And we are a great partner. If you have ideas for people to bring in, we can help facilitate or even organize events like that. For those of you thinking about the relationship to your students, we also have a student internship program. And this program is one where it's on campus. We have offices in East Hall. I encourage if anyone would like to come visit me and see those offices, I'd be happy to show you around. That program is to help students who want to get kind of professional experience, to sort of transition from their academic coursework into experience that will help them get a paid internship later on, a full-time job, that it directly kind of bridges the academic and the more like applied professional experiences. We have different tracks. So we've had many students work on research and curriculum development. So students are doing research skills and learning to write for a more general audience. We have a media production track for students who can help us kind of make short videos or work on our podcast, right, to sort of get the word out about the value of the university for the public good, and a variety of things. So we'd like you to know about that so that you can be thinking of these opportunities for your students and helping them prepare for life after graduation in a way that's a really low barrier to entry. They don't have to travel anywhere. They can walk to our offices on campus. They get academic credit for it, so it can happen within their load each semester. There are a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of professional development and mentorship that goes into that internship. We also have a research associate position. So if you have colleagues or friends who are maybe adjunct faculty, or not in or if you happen to be in like a one-year position, but maybe want to keep your access to library materials, an email address, and to even have access to a shared office, we can facilitate that as well. And so we want folks to know about that. You may have colleagues that you're collaborating with who are not currently affiliated with an institution. We can help facilitate giving them some of those, kind of like a courtesy appointment within ICS to support that work. And then we're in all of these programs sort of tie into building relationships with community organizations and engaging the public through our events and through social media.
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Yes, I did. I skipped right over it. The team teaching program. Do I have, let's see if I have any photos of that. Yeah, I will get to that in more detail. So hold tight. I'll go into a little more detail on several of these programs. Oh, do you have a question too?
You mentioned the fellowships and I'm assuming the fellowship is time off from teaching.
Teaching and service.
Teaching and service. So
Yes.
do you match the salary?
I will get to that.
Okay,
That's my next slide. I'll start with the podcast. And then after I get through some of these program ones, please, if there are other questions that I have not answered about any of these programs, please ask them in the chat or here, and I'll get to them. So the podcast, as I mentioned, we have a new season that is coming out in a couple of weeks, but we have 5 previous seasons that are already on that you can download and listen to. And what these do, these are half-hour conversations. It's a well-edited professional podcast that features mostly me as the host, although we have guest hosts too, interviewing BGSU students, faculty, staff, and alumni who are doing really fascinating, interesting work for the public good. So if you think you're doing work that would fit within this, let us know. We're always, or if you think of other people you'd like to see highlighted, let us know. We're always looking for new topics and folks to include. So we're really interested in thinking broadly about what that public good looks like, right? So scholarship that serves the public good, as well as art, activism, entrepreneurship, and other kinds of experts. We also feature visiting speakers who are coming in, who we typically pair with someone who's a BGSU person to really show how BGSU is also has experts who are working on those issues. So a few years back, we had a common read with Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, who was the woman who was the pediatrician whistleblower in Flint, who discovered the lead in the water and then wrote a book about it. She came to campus and I interviewed her with Dr. Karen Johnson-Webb, a cultural geographer who does medical health disparities, particularly in the Toledo area. And so that's kind of the idea, is even when we have external speakers, we want to show how BGSU is also producing important work for the public good. And BGSU students and alums, I've got a typo there, which as an English major really kills me. They work on the episodes. So those student interns are helping to do the research and the writing of those scripts. They are editing episodes and sound engineering those as well. So it is also, if you think about that internship program, it really is also helping students build those skills and think about the public good. Okay.
We have one more chat question.
Someone knows Karen Johnson-Webb or Mona Hanna-Attisha. I'm not sure which, but they're both amazing. Okay, so let me now get to the fellowship. So there is an application process that is every October. The end of October is when those applications are due. You can go on our website and it has all of that. We are going to be doing some updating between now and beginning of October. So the actual application may adjust slightly, but that will give you a good sense of what we're looking for in applications. We want people to be thinking about research as a public good, right? So thinking about how your research can inform, educate, improve the lives of people, rather than sort of just thinking of it as niche research. Really, what are the implications of the work that you're doing and who can they help? And I and the ICS staff help every faculty fellow to sort of think through the possibilities for community engagement, potential organizations or individuals that might be really interested in the work that you're doing. And during that semester, you select when you apply, whether you want the fall or the spring of the following year, or you can say you don't care, either one. If you're selected, you get a semester leave where you are off from research, off from teaching. And what the university does is sort of provide to your home unit funds to hire a replacement to teach those courses. So if you're teaching 2 or 3 or 4 courses that semester that you would not be teaching, the ICS right now is basically those funds come from the College of Arts and Sciences. The college then works with the unit to provide not necessarily all of the funds, but enough of them to really offset the cost to replace you for that semester with other labor. If you don't have faculty in the unit who could pick up that slack, there are funds to offset that so that you can really focus on that research or creative project. And during that semester, you do a public talk, and those might be on campus, but it might be at the public library. We might, think broadly about where that occurs. That makes sense with the project and the kind of work that you do. And then you would also be working with some kind of community engagement project. So how, helping individuals or a community group use that research. So some examples. We have had a faculty member whose research was on the stigma of miscarriage and pregnancy loss. Now, a very timely topic given the current state of laws around reproductive health in the nation and in Ohio. But part of her project was about really doing qualitative interviews with folks to understand what those experiences were like and where were the communication challenges, right? And one of the things that came out a lot was with healthcare providers, that healthcare providers were not well prepared to actually think through the emotional impact of the news that they were delivering. And so the community engagement piece that's Dr. Lisa Hanasono and Media and Communication. Her work was she actually partnered with the University of Toledo Med School for new med students to get training in sensitively dealing that kind of news with to their patients, right? So that's one example of community engagement, not a public event, but something very tailored to a specific audience that could really benefit from that research. Other examples are we've had folks who have partnered with local school districts to provide, to work with either a class or a student group to provide them with the information that they could develop peer training materials to what are the warning signs of human trafficking, right? Which are actually about grooming of young, typically teenage girls, right? It's not the kind of trafficking, it's not a Liam Neeson movie of someone kidnapping you, right? It's someone who you think loves you and is your boyfriend. So they developed peer training for the warning signs, right? So there are different forms that can take. And again, I work with every applicant who's interested in helping them think through the possibilities that make sense for their project. And then you fellows appear on the podcast. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear some of those episodes with fellows. Okay, so now collaborative clusters. So I've mentioned some of this already as an opportunity to find other folks who are interested in some of the big questions that you may be interested in. And it might be a group that's focused around a particular topic and you want to workshop articles in progress. That's one possibility. Another possibility would be to develop pedagogical or curricular initiatives. It can be student focused, or it can be about developing relationships with a community organization. And again, we can help introduce you to folks, put out calls to invite others, and we have some support, financial support we can offer to make those things happen. And they're really forums to kind of incubate innovative interdisciplinary collaborations that help you go from idea into action. All right, team teaching. So this is one of our newer programs, and I'm really excited by this because one of the challenges that we have here, like on many, many campuses, is that there are lots of sort of bureaucratic hurdles to team teaching, right? Each faculty member has their assigned load for the unit and there are needs. So we realized this was a challenge, that people want to do team teaching. They want to be thinking interdisciplinarily and collaboratively, but there are some practical challenges to do that. So we have developed this program, and again, with the support of the College of Arts and Sciences, it allows a team of people, so two folks from two different units, right? So the idea is it really needs to kind of stretch and bring together different methodological and disciplinary approaches, but it buys out the second person so that course counts as their full, as a full one course. So instead of two people, like one person sort of volunteering their time, both people are teaching one class in load, and it keeps the class small. You don't have to say like, well, each of you would have had 20, but now it's going to be a joint class of 40. No, because that defeats the whole purpose, right, of the kind of collaborative experience. So we have a program, each semester we'll do a call. So it's a kind of ongoing call for ideas. I will say we want these to be like incubators. We want this to be kind of a test flight for a possible larger scale curriculum change or something that might really exist beyond those two faculty members, right? So this is about thinking, what are the needs of 21st century students? What are the kinds of, big juicy problems that require having more than one discipline address it? And this is a way to sort of get some support to try that out. And I'm going to play this little video produced by our interns last semester about two team teaching courses that we're running. Oh, now I'm worried that the sound. Do you happen to know if the sharing sound button was checked?
Yeah, they should be able to hear it.
Okay, all right, so let me just get that as loud as I can.
Well, my name is Dr. Christy Kell. I am an associate professor in the Department of World Languages and Cultures.
I'm Dr. Neil Jesse. I'm a professor of political science.
My name is Roslyn Fletcher. I'm a senior journalism major with a minor in international studies, enrolled in International Studies 3800, which is a migration course. I chose it in interest with migration, particularly in looking at these media. A lot of migration happens across the world, so I've been interested in researching and learning more about it.
It's very important that students get multiple perspectives in the classroom. Giving the students an opportunity to put context, stories, literature, film to the facts and figures and tables. It is a win for the students because it brings to life the things that I typically teach, and it was again an opportunity I think has mess up at all.
We're able to establish control of the government quite rapidly. They established the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan and have a public government in place.
My partner, Dr. Jesse, will say, yes, this is exactly what we see in his field. Really cool way. We end up reinforcing each other a lot.
And so in general, I want them to note how each issue is providing them a quality learning experience in a way that's just not typical in a non-team class course. I think this is a very valuable course. I think a lot of students would appreciate being in it. And what's also nice is that the students get to find out how two different professors approach something. It's like getting two classes in one.
I am learning a lot from teaching with my colleague, and that's almost my
I'm Dr. Nathan Inslee. I work in the School of Earth, Environment, and Society.
And I'm Dr. Margaret Weinberger, and I'm in the Department of Sociology. My name is
I know the sound quality is not great. When we send along the PowerPoint, you'll be able to follow that link. I think it's also, if it's not already on our website, it will be shortly. But basically, you get the idea. There were two Team Talk courses offered this past year. One was a migration course that paired a faculty member from international studies with a political scientist. And so they were moving back and forth between kind of the qualitative and like films and representations of migration with the kind of data and the kind of, macro view of it. Yeah.
You have a question, but I also have a question. So I'm assuming when it comes to team teaching, clearly they can't be in the same department.
Correct.
Can they even be in the same school?
I guess it would depend, like, which school are you?
Sociology, I'm assuming you're in arts and sciences, correct?
Yes. So they can be, within the same college, I guess.
College.
Within college, not a problem. We just really want to think about how those two faculty members could be different faculty members from those units could teach that class in the future if this really went well and became a part of the curriculum. We don't want these to be like one-off collaborations, like, hey, I love my friend over there. We're going to do this like one-time thing. We want to be thinking about like, how would this actually fit into the curriculum?
But they also need to be in the same college then.
Not necessarily. We can work through those hurdles because the buyout sort of allows us to cross out of that. And we do want to be thinking creatively about, what's it like to bring together someone from the College of Musical Arts with, right. And so we would not say no to any of those. We would just have to figure out the practicalities. The bigger questions for those of you thinking about this are thinking about kind of topics that make sense, where you're really bringing together two very different ways of approaching that subject matter, right? We don't want two lit faculty who sort of do the same thing to team teach. We're really trying to think, what would the student benefit be to see, maybe it's a biologist with a theater professor, and they're doing something about kind of trying to make climate change feel real, right? That's very interesting to us. Let me see what the question is in the chat. Okay. So again, look out, we'll be sending calls for applications each semester. Typically, once you apply, if you're accepted, then you have like a 6-month period to sort of come up with a more complete syllabus and all of that. And then the class usually runs 18 months later, right? It's a long lag because their scheduling happens further and further in advance. And we need to have we need to give units time to, reassign or to plan for the sort of different distribution of teaching. Okay. Any other questions related to team teaching? We are very excited about this program and really hope folks will put a pin in this and apply. There are no limitations on whereas the faculty fellowship, you have to have been here several years before you can apply. You have to have been through that extended EPR. So APR is annual performance review. EPR is the extended. So that one has more stipulations. For this, you can apply for this at any time. Okay. And again, sometimes this can work really well in correspondence with a cluster. Like if you have an idea of this is a juicy subject that we want to keep working on, the cluster could precede the team teaching application, or it could follow from it if you wanted to keep thinking about it. And yes, both departments get course credit. So that's, it creates a little more opportunity for that experimentation in typically a small class size for 2 faculty to fully be able to devote their teaching to this sort of new innovative kind of pedagogy. Of those 2 classes, so I mentioned the one on migration. The other team taught class was with environmental studies and sociology. And so that one, part of what the team teaching made possible was a lot of site visits to environmental sites and thinking about what are the human responses to those issues. So visiting a water treatment plant, visiting kind of urban versus rural environments within Wood and Lucas counties, and thinking about the different environmental and social experiences in those different places. So be thinking about the possibilities there. Okay. This is, again, I already kind of mentioned this, the student internship program. So I want you to be thinking about this. We our best interns come from faculty who send them our way. And so we want you to be aware of this internship program to direct students to apply and to participate. We've had students who, are using their graphic design skills to think about kind of good communication, accessibility practices in design, as well as, using the content that we're talking about in a way that's inviting to public audiences. I've mentioned media production. We also have like project management tracks for students who, just sort of really want to see how all the different parts of an organization work together to an output. So really kind of any skill set we're likely to be able to fold into the work that we do, whether it's primarily writing, technical, visual skills, and students tend to be extremely social media savvy. So they are fantastic at working with us to help promote and communicate kind of what's happening at ICS through our social media channels. And then these are some of the other programs. As I've mentioned, we have a visiting speaker series, research associate position for unaffiliated researchers, scholars, artists, helping you to build relationships with community organizations relevant to your research and teaching interests, and that public engagement. And you can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We're on all those things. We have a YouTube channel where when we have events and things, we try and make sure that is publicly available to folks who may have missed the event.
What's your handle for IG?
I should have had that on here. I think it's ICS BGSU. One of them is BGSU ICS, and most of them are ICS BGSU. So it should be one or the other. It's on our website. I know it is on our website. Are there other questions? Tell me a little bit. So the two folks who are in the room with me, tell me your name and your area.
My name is Gerard Nadeau. I'm in the architecture department.
Great.
Which is within technology, architecture, and applied engineering. We had a strategic plan meeting yesterday, and one of the topics was how could we bring in more innovative teaching to our school. So yeah, of course. More specifically, I'm coming in after a 5-year hiatus from teaching, but in my previous position, I won a national teaching award for a community engaged project that I'm interested in adapting to this current situation. I'm being encouraged to, actually. So I have a lot of questions, starting with a description of what I did and I accomplished, and then trying to think of ways to bring that project to be GSU, the Bowling Green community, maybe the Toledo community, because that's a type of urban environment that the work I did is geared towards. Yeah. But it's noteworthy in that it can build community in a number of ways. So these are things that I'm interested in speaking to you about.
Well, you got my card in there, so please reach out. We can set up a time to talk. I'd love to hear more. Absolutely. And I'm a part of what ICS tries to serve is as this sort of hub that can connect people across campus.
And then another thing that I'm going to be charged with is design build efforts. Yeah. Originating from my school, and there are a lot of different ways to do that, but I'm very interested in socially transformative actions within a community. So I
please, look forward to hearing more. That sounds great. What about you?
My name is Kim Stanley, and I'm new here. I guess I don't start until Monday, but
you're in my other unit in the School of Cultural and Critical Studies. Yes. I'm in American Culture Studies in English. So
I know, I figured. I sounds so familiar. So what I'm about to say will not seem odd to you at all. So I'm coming here from another university where I had projects that fortunately I can bring with me. One is working with the Park Service. There's a family that had one of the first Black settlements in Indiana, and they now have access again to that settlement. And so we just had a meeting yesterday with the Park Service. So I'm interested in how, one, continue to work on this project, but also thinking about Black settlements in Ohio. And so maybe doing a bridge with that. And so they're working on web design and all this other stuff. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring that to the department, to bring it to students and interns here. The other project that I'm working on, which is probably more immediate, is Black 1968, which next year will be the 55th anniversary. And I'm from Cleveland originally, so I'm looking at, my dad was one of the first police officers after Mayor Carl Stokes got on. One of his initiatives was to diversify the police department, and my father was part of that class of men. And so doing those interviews, I've already started interviewing him, and so now I want to, get an article out of it, but I think it would also be good to make a podcast of these men that were part of the first cohort of Carl Stokes' initiative.
So I'm going to recommend, I think that's a fabulous idea. And I think, I think one of the things I would recommend, this is where my connecting comes in, is Nick Pavlik is one of the librarians in BGSU libraries. And they have just started, they did their kind of first test episode of a new podcast that they want to start called Archival Encounters. And the first episode was on Ella P. Stewart, who is a local Toledo area woman, first Black pharmacist, but was also a civil rights leader locally. And he did a podcast sort of looking at the archival record we have of her in the BGSU libraries, her life in Toledo. He would be a wonderful person to talk to about that because he is interested in precisely the things you're talking about, local history, archives, and the podcast form. So Nick Pavlik, talk to him. These are exciting. What about folks on the chat? Can folks tell me a little bit about, introduce yourself and your area and kind of what I've talked about that's maybe sparking.
Yeah, I can go. My name is Shiva Priya Santanam. I go by Shiva. I am a new faculty member at the Communication Sciences and Disorders Department. I used to be a PhD student at BGSU 2010 to 2014, and I'm returning as faculty. But my interest involves supporting communication and social interaction, promoting inclusiveness on college campuses, workplaces and high schools for students on the spectrum.
But for each of you, I really encourage you, no matter what those ideas are, if you're not sure what the idea is yet, but like what you hear, reach out to me, right? I'm at J Sheffy. They cut off the R off my, if you haven't figured out the BGSU like email thing, you don't get to choose your own ID. It's just like the first 5 or whatever. So I'm JSHEFFE or that ICS email address, easy to remember, ics@bgsu.edu. You can just contact me and we can set up a time to chat in person or in Zoom and talk through some potential ideas. I'm always happy to suggest folks I know on campus who might share some of your interests. Yes. Shiva, or I don't know if it's Shiva or Siva, didn't hear you. I don't think there is a speaker
we can
set up. We didn't hear anything. I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's no audio.
No, there's no incoming audio. Oh, okay. Please do email me. I would love to hear what you're thinking about. Yeah. And I don't.
Turn on your microphone.
So you're muted, Siva, if you're trying to speak.
No, I was, now I think you can hear me.
There's a speaker.
I was not muted at that time.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? No? Oh, Alex can hear. Okay. It's all right. I'll email.
But we can't hear you, but comments, please put them in the chat if you're joining us hybrid. Oh, great. So you can hear us. Okay. Well, that's good.
Okay, yeah, and could, I'll just drop my email address. Well, since we don't seem to have the ability to kind of hear the folks that are joining remotely, I do hope you will reach out. I really would love to hear from each of you about possibilities and keep those lines of communication open. We regularly are using Campus Update and our email list. So if you're interested, keep an eye out on Campus Update. We always will post whatever announcements, deadlines are upcoming, but we'll also reach out this fall as with some of our new programs to all of you who are here to make sure that you get that information as well. All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to get to, talk to you a little bit about some of the opportunities at ICS. And great to meet the two of you. Thank you for being here.
We have a workshop next door at 2 o'clock if anybody wants to learn how to use our recording studio, just right down in 109. So throwing it out there.
Next time, yes.
Yeah. We're gonna do an open house in September too. Yeah.